great start. Hello, and welcome to Andre's Audiobooks, the series for those who don't have the will, the money, or otherwise the ability to access audiobooks from other sites on their own. And mostly for university, possibly college purposes. So, to begin this episode, we'll be covering, for a lack of access from Audible, Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, specifically the 50th anniversary edition, for anyone who hasn't. As is common with most audiobooks, I may use voices to help with character coordination, but I also might not, because I lack in confidence unto my vocal variation. For the most part. Apparently, I can read really well, and in voices, according to my writing workshops. Doesn't help in audiobook applications. So, most likely scenario, these videos will each consist of only one chapter of a book, but if they are short enough, I may combine and otherwise compress the videos to fit multiple chapters in with as few breaks as possible. I have, for the most part, a lack of an ability to focus on things when only occupying, like one of my senses. So for the most part, especially when I read, I normally listen to something in the background. And because I don't have, and there is no available audiobook for this book, I'm listening to my YouTube playlists. So if at any point I stop reading or pause it and there's an evident break, it's probably because I don't want to not listen to the song. I will also probably not be looking at the camera at all, because I have not read this before, except for chapter 1, because it is incredibly short. So I'm going to be basically reading word for word, and I may or may not cut out hesitancies and inaccuracies. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. W.B. Yeats, The Second Coming. Things Fall Apart, Part 1, Chapter 1. Okanko was well known throughout the 9 villages, and even beyond. His fame rested on solid personal achievements. As a young man of 18, he had brought honor to his village by throwing a mallet. As a young man of 18, he had brought honor to his village by throwing Amalinze the cat. Amalinze was the great wrestler who for 7 years was unbeaten, from Umuofia to Umbeno. He was called the cat because his back would never touch the earth. It was this man that Okanko threw in the fight, which the old men agreed was one of the fiercest since the founder of their town engaged a spirit of the wild for 7 days and 7 nights. The drums beat and the flute sang, and the spectators held their breath. Amalinze was a wily craftsman, but Okanko was as slippery as a fish in water. Every nerve and every muscle stood out on their arms, on their backs, and their thighs. One almost heard them stretching to breaking point. In the end, Okanko threw the cat. That was many years ago, 20 years or more. During this time, Kanko's fame had grown like a bushfire in the Harmattan. He was tall and huge, and his bushy eyebrows and wide nose gave him a very severe look. He breathed heavily, and it was said that when he slept, his wives and children in their houses could hear him breathe. When he walked, his heels hardly touched the ground, and he seemed to walk on springs, as if he was going to pounce on somebody. And he did pounce on people quite often. He had a slight stammer, and when he was angry and could not get his words out quickly enough, he would use his fists. He had no patience with unsuccessful men. He had had no patience with his father. Unoka? Unoka. I'm gonna say Unoka. I'm also probably gonna wind up forgetting how I pronounce the names. Unoka, for that was his father's name, had died 10 years ago. In his day, he was lazy and improvident and was quite incapable of thinking about tomorrow. If any money came his way, and it seldom did, he immediately bought gourds of palm wine, called around his neighbors, and made merry. He always said that whenever he saw a dead man's mouth, he saw the folly of not eating what one had in one's lifetime. Unoka was, of course, a debtor, and he owed every neighbor some money, from a few cowries to quite substantial amounts. He was tall but very thin, and had a slight stoop. He wore a haggard and mournful look, except when he was drinking or playing on his flute. He was very good on his flute, and his happiest moments were the 2 or 3 moons after the harvest, when the village musicians brought down their instruments hung above the fireplace. Unoka would play with them, his face beaming with blessedness and peace. Sometimes another village would ask Unoka's band, and their dancing Egugo? Their dancing Egugo to come and stay with them and teach them their tunes. They would go to such hosts for as long as 3 or 4 markets, making music and feasting. Unoka loved the good fare and the good fellowship, and he loved this season of the year, when the rains had stopped and the sun rose every morning with dazzling beauty. And it was not too hot either, because the cold and dry Harmattan wind was blowing down from the north. Some years the Harmattan was very severe, and a dense haze hung on the atmosphere. Old men and children would then sit round fire logs, warming their bodies. Unoka loved it all, and he loved the first kites that returned with the dry season, and the children who sang songs of welcome to them. He would remember his own childhood, how he had often wandered around looking for a kite sailing leisurely against the blue sky. As soon as he found one, he would sing with his whole being, welcoming it back from its long, long journey, and asking it if it had brought home any lengths of cloth. That was years ago, when he was young. Unoka, the grown-up, was a failure. He was poor, and his wife and children had barely enough to eat. People laughed at him because he was a loafer, and they swore never to lend him any more money because he would never pay it back. But Unoka was such a man that he always succeeded in borrowing more and piling up his debts. Hello, fat cat. It's okay, cat. Sit down. Sit down. Or sit further up. I don't really mind which.
She's so fat.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I think she really misses Kiki. She is very much purring. Yeah. One day, a neighbor called Okoye came in to see him. He was reclining on a mud bed in his hut, playing on the flute. He immediately rose and shook hands with Okoye, who then unrolled the goatskin which he carried under his arm and sat down. Unoka went into an inner room and soon returned with a small wooden disc containing a kola nut. some alligator pepper, and a lump of white chalk. "I have cola," he announced when he sat down, and passed the disc over to his desk. "Thank you. He who brings cola brings life, but I think you ought to break it," replied Okoye, passing back the disc. "No, it is for you, I think." And they argued like this for a few moments before Runoka accepted the honor of breaking the cola. Okoye, meanwhile, took the lump of chalk, drew some lines on the floor, and then painted his big toe. As he broke the cola, Runoka prayed to their ancestors for life and health, and for protection against their enemies. When they had eaten, they had talked about many things, about the heavy rains which were drowning the yams, about the next ancestral feast, and about impending war with the village of Mbeno. Runoka was never happy when it came to wars. He was, in fact, a coward and could not bear the sight of blood. And so he changed the subject and talked about music. And his face beamed. He could hear in the mind's ear the blood-stirring and intricate rhythms of the... I believe this pronunciation is going to wind up being EQ rather than EQ. So I'm going to call it an EQ because of the... I want to say bird, but really it's more like the demon of Far Cry 4. No, that one is Far Cry 3. Far Cry 4 is the damn hawks. Debatably bobcats, but rhythms of the Eku and the Udu and the Ojin. And he could hear his own flute weaving in and out of them, decorating them with a colorful and plaintive note. 2. The total effect was gay and brisk, but if one picked out the flute as it went up and down and then broke up to short snatches, one saw that there was sorrow and grief there. Okoye was also a musician. He played on the ocean, but he was not a failure like Runoka. He had a large barn full of yams, and he had 3 wives. And now he was going to take the Adamili title, the 3rd highest in the land. It was a very expensive ceremony, and he was gathering all his resources together. And was in fact the reason why he had come to see Runoka. He cleared his throat and began. "Thank you for the cola. You may have heard of the title I intend to take shortly." Having spoken plainly so far, Okoye said the next half a dozen sentences in proverbs among the people. Okay, let's try this at a distance then. Among the Igbo are... Among the Igbo, the art of conversation is regarded very highly, and proverbs are the palm oil with which words are eaten. Okoye was a great talker, and he spoke for a long time, skirting around the subject and then hitting it finally. In short, he was asking Runoka to return the 200 cowries he had borrowed from him more than 2 years before. As soon as Runoka understood what his friend was driving at, he burst out laughing. He laughed loud and long, and his voice rang out clear as the ocean, and tears stood in his eyes. His visitor was amazed, sat speechless. At the end, Runoka was able to give an answer between fresh outbursts of mirth. "Look at the wall," he said, pointing at the far wall of his hut, which is rubbed with red earth so that it shone. "Look at those lines of chalk." And Okoye saw groups of short perpendicular lines drawn in chalk. There were 5 groups, and the smallest group had 10 lines. Runoka had a sense of the dramatic, and so he allowed a pause, in which he took a pinch of snuff and sneezed noisily. Then he continued. Each group there represents a debt to someone, and each stroke is 100 calories. You see, I owe that man 1,000 calories, but he has not come to wake me up in the morning for it. I shall pay you, but not today. Our elders say the sun will shine on those who stand before it shine. This line bugged me when I first read it because I had to reread it. Okay. Our elders say that the sun will shine on those who stand before it shines on those who kneel under them. In this case, them being those who stand. I shall pay my big debts first. And he took another pinch of snuff, as if that was paying the big debts first. Koye rolled his goatskin and departed. When Anoka died, he had taken no title at all, and he was heavily in debt. Any wonder then that his son Okako was ashamed of him? Fortunately, among these people, a man was judged according to his worth, and not according to the worth of his father. Okako was clearly cut out for great things. He was still young, but he had won fame as the greatest wrestler in the Nine Village. He was a wealthy farmer, and had 2 barns full of yams, and he had just married his 3rd wife. To crown it all, he had taken 2 titles, and had shown incredible prowess in 2 intertribal wars. And so, Okanko was still young, although he was already one of the greatest men of his time. Age was respected among his people, but achievement was revered. As the elders said, if a child washed his hands, he could eat with kings. Okanko had clearly washed his hands, so he ate with kings and elders. And that was how he came to look after the doomed lad who was sacrificed. And that's how he came to look after the doomed lad who was sacrificed to the village of Fear by their neighbors to avoid war and bloodshed. The ill-fated lad was called Ikemefuna. Give it a couple of seconds, although maybe I should make this less than half an hour. Hang on. You know what, yeah, we'll do that. Mostly because it's more likely gonna have to watch it, because I find that shorter video times means people who are not interested in taking a long time to do things get tricked into watching things for longer. So, I'm gonna end it here.